Hello, everybody. It's my privilege to introduce to you, all the way from the south side of Chicago, the man, the myth, the legend, my Theo, your brother, the Southside Unicorn.
And what they're proposing. Romney wants to he said in the first 100 days, he's going to let the big banks once again write their own rules. Unchain Wall Street. They're going to put you all back in chains.
Hey, everybody, that's right. It's me, Ken White, host of the Southside Unicorn Show. And have I got a show for you today? It's Friday, and you know what that means. We're going to talk about anything and everything that we can. Today, we are blessed, fortunate, and lucky to have ourselves two real live, bona fide, no joke, dyed-in-the-wool millennials, age 23 and 24. I want to introduce you to Jonathan, age 24, and James, age 23, and we'll be doing that in just a minute. But today's show is going to be about the sticky yicky, the boobity pop, the purple murple. That's right, it's going to be about weed. It's going to be about Mary Jane. Do you love me, Mary Jane? That's right. When I heard that song as a kid, I thought it was about a girl. Come to find out, I was also wrong. But that's all right. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about universal income. And if you don't know what it is, you're going to learn what it is because we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk a little bit about Jussie Smollett. And we're also going to talk a little bit about white privilege. But speaking of white privilege, I just want to say this real quick about tomorrow's show. Tomorrow's show is going to be titled, Whose History Is It Anyway? See, last month, February 1st to the 28th, was Black History Month. Just like Obama said, I got a pen and a phone. Well, I got a microphone in a studio. I could have done a show on Black history anytime I wanted to. I chose not to do a show in the month of February because I don't want to relegate Black history to 1 month. There's 12 months in a year. And when it comes to Black history, whose history is it anyway? You know, the Irish suffered pretty bad. The Asians definitely suffered. If you look at the railroads, you better think Chinese every time you see it. So I want to talk about Black history, and I'm going to talk about it tomorrow on March 2nd because Black history is 365. It's 24/7. It ain't just 1 month. It's all 12 months. So as the Southside Unicorn does it, we'll do Black history tomorrow. But today, let me introduce all my listeners and my fans to two awesome young men. They happen to be Caucasian males, white men, white boys, whatever you want to call them at this point. Well, actually, I'm going to ask you guys in a minute. Let me introduce you to Jonathan, age 24.
Hi, how are you doing?
And this is Jonathan. I want to introduce you to James, age 23.
How's it going?
So do you guys get upset if I call you white boys or white men? How does that work for you?
It works fine.
You all right with white boy? Or?
Yeah, I don't really mind it. I don't take offense to it. I don't see why you would.
Wow. See, ladies and gentlemen, this is what I'm talking about, especially for those of us Republicans who are still in South, should I say California. This is how we're supposed to do it. This is my vision of what we're talking about. We're not going to talk about the issues. We're going to talk to each other. And if you can't get some millennials on your show, and listen to me right now, I don't want to preach to the choir. I'm sick and tired of that. That's what I've been trying to tell y'all. I don't want to talk to another Republican. I know what you're going to say. I know what you're thinking. I know what you're feeling. Jonathan, are you a Republican?
No, I'm not.
James, are you a Republican?
No, I'm not.
Would you both be considered millennials?
Yes.
Yeah.
Am I a Republican?
Yes.
Do you know me to be a Republican?
Yes.
Why you grinning? What's up?
I was saying I have no idea.
You don't have no idea. Well, you better recognize I happen to be a Republican since the day I was born. I'm a natural Republican. Basically, I like to consider myself like Blade. I'm like a vampire. I have all of their strengths and none of their weaknesses, right? I started off my whole life as a Republican, and I'm grateful and I'm glad that I can be here with the two of you having a conversation. We're on diametric ends of the stick. We really are. You know what I mean? But we're talking to each other. We're not talking at each other. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I don't even have on my patent pendant, or should I say my actual regulated MAGA hat. You know my hat. You've seen it. You've seen it on Flecker's show. my nice little American flag with MAGA, Make America Great hat. I don't have it on because that's not what this is about. Right now, this is about how can we talk to each other? How can we get back to understanding each other? I'm considerably older than the two guests that we have on today. I am in my 50s. So I'm what they call a baby boomer. I'm a baby boomer. You all are millennials. We supposed to be talking to each other. We got to talk to each other. You know, they say young men do this and old men do that, right? Sooner or later, this is going to be your world. Yeah, and James looks over at Jonathan. You know, I got to do that because you guys can't see what's going on in the studio. But yeah, this is going to be your world. And that's just the way it's always been. It's sort of like a torch being passed off to each other. But I have some concerns, and so do my listeners. We have concerns because it's a matter of whose world is this going to be? Are we going to be able to live in your world that you see? And does your world make sense where we can be comfortable knowing that it's going to be passed along to another generation? Or are you guys the generation that's going to mess it up for everybody? So that's what the conversation is going to be about today. We said we were going to have our first conversation on marijuana, and we're going to do that. It seems like a lot of cities are starting to bend to the powers that be, and they're opening up medical marijuana centers. They're making regulations where you can actually own a marijuana center. My goodness, even Iron Mike Tyson is trying to make his own version of weed out there in Las Vegas, Nevada, right now. So, Jonathan, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
How do you feel about weed? Are you a proponent of it? Do you like it? You think legalize it? What's your opinion on it?
Well, I think it should be legalized just from the perspective that I don't believe our government has the right to tell us what we can and can't consume. I mean, we saw this during Prohibition with alcohol, such a big backlash from our government banning it. And now, look at it, you can buy alcohol wherever you want, and I think that's how marijuana should be. But of course, there should be limits on it, not allowing people underage to be able to get it and consume it like alcohol. I think that's a bad idea, and that would be damaging not only to our society, but also to the marijuana business at large.
Now, you know what? I got to give it to you, young man. That was awesome. That was very well put. But you do realize that makes you sound like a libertarian.
Oh, I definitely have libertarian tendencies in me.
Oh, okay.
So you might be getting a couple hints
of that every now and then, because
yeah.
that was very well phrased. You know, even in your statement, Jonathan, I have hope for you millennials. That was very well put. James, how do you feel about marijuana?
I think it's great. I think
No. I didn't ask you how you feel when you use it. How do you feel about the actual legality of it?
I think it's great. I think that it's a safer substance than almost every other one that is legally available now. And while there can still be downsides, and you'd be ignorant to not acknowledge that, it should definitely be legal everywhere and should be regulated.
And when you say regulated, what do you mean? I mean, like, the government's going to be a part of that?
Yeah, I think it should be, just for the safety of the individual. Like any for quality purposes. You don't want the shit that the stuff down the street.
Okay,
Sorry
ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have to find some way to bleep that out. All right.
Excuse me. The stuff down the street that, the weird neighbor grew and sprayed God knows what on it.
Okay.
We don't want that. It's a consumable thing. It needs to be regulated for safety reasons.
You don't want growth hormones in the marijuana that you're smoking that can later cause cancer. You want to make sure what you're getting is grown properly. You wouldn't go to the store and buy oranges that you knew that were grown in only fecal matter pots or soil. It just wouldn't make sense. So, of course, you have to have some sort of regulation. And I think we've seen from the past with our food industry that we can't always just rely on the industries themselves to regulate themselves. So we do need some sort of government intervention in that case.
Well, I like what you two gentlemen are saying. And that's where, we baby boomers and you millennials, we need to talk more. Because let me add something to that too. I went to a Parliament concert with my cousins back in 1978. and it was at Soldiers Field in Chicago. And everybody and their mama was smoking weed. I mean, the cops didn't do nothing. I'm looking at my cousin. I'm like, yo, man, and these people supposed to be arrested. My cousin, he's a very wise man. He's like my Uncle Junior. You know, he says things that are so wise but so simple. He looked at me and said, hey, Kenny, what are they gonna do? Arrest everybody? You know? And I'm like, and I realized then, I said, I could see the arc. I could see the curve of where weed was gonna go. Because my cousin had a bag in his pocket. I ain't trying to throw you out there on the bus, cuzzo. But yeah, you know, so I knew that it was gonna go somewhere. And now we're here. We're at the point where marijuana, you go to Vegas, you go anywhere, that aroma, that aromatic scent is everywhere. I've been at stoplights and smelt cars. It's just smoke just coming out the windows. You know what I'm saying? So we're there. But gentlemen, I wanna add this. I wanna posit this. What about PCP? What about LSD? You know that marijuana can be laced. You know that things can be put in it, right?
Absolutely.
Now, I've heard you two talk about, you know, making sure the quality is good. Of course you want good quality. You want that stuff to get you. You know what I mean? But I didn't hear either one of you say, what about illicit drugs or extra drugs? Because some people like to say that marijuana is a gateway drug, that it's going to take you to some other places. Are either one of you partakers of marijuana? Do you get down?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I smoke occasionally.
And do you go into the other realms of drugs, LSD, crack? I mean,
no, I would
honest.
say actually quite the opposite. I'm not afraid to say that when I was younger, I tried a few other drugs. Mm-hmm. Nothing insane, definitely.
But you experimented.
But yeah, certainly. Like I feel like many kids do. And at first, I didn't even really like weed, but now that I've come to be fond of it, I would say it has disinterested me even more in other substances. I don't want to try anything else because I'm completely content with this one.
And do you think you're the average millennial out there that's dealing with marijuana?
Want to chase this crazy.
Does that make you want to get higher and higher? Does it make you want to find a new vista?
No.
What about you, Jonathan?
No, well, for me, I had a different experience with marijuana. I used it to come out of a physical opioid addiction from when I hurt my back. So it was actually like an anti-gateway drug. It took me off of the extreme pain medication that I was on and ultimately led me to a less extreme drug that doesn't have nearly as the bad side effects as opioids do.
Is that right? Do you think that's a story that most people could tell, that marijuana actually alleviates pain and prevents you from using, as we say, we have an opioid epidemic in America. Even President Donald J. Trump is fighting a war against opioid epidemics. So you're saying that marijuana actually stopped you from doing that?
Well, it helped me stop using those opioids as often as I was. I was taking 6 to 8 pills a day. And then once I slowly started to wean myself off with the help of marijuana, I was taking maybe 1 pill a day, 2 pills a day. And then I eventually just only went to marijuana. And then eventually it got to the point where I was okay with not smoking marijuana and I wasn't in pain anymore.
Wow. And you say that you actually were an experimenter in other drugs, but marijuana hasn't caused you to want to go back or try something different.
Yep, absolutely.
This is very interesting. So basically, marijuana is here to stay.
Of course, it's here to stay, like alcohol or any other legal substance that was prohibited in the past.
Wow. So, James, I'm going to ask you both, just real quick, a census. Legalize marijuana totally and turn it into a pack of cigarettes, yes or no?
Yes.
Legalize marijuana and turn it into a pack of cigarettes, yes or no, James?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, from Millennials. They'll be here a lot longer than we will be, and they're going to be buying products and consuming goods longer than we will. And they're saying that it's all right with them that marijuana be a part of our society at this point. Hey, we got to go ahead and take a station break for all of those supporters and people who make this show possible. Go nowhere, and we'll be right back in just a moment.
Take me in your arms, do just what you want. You're the one I trust. I belong.
It's Joy Villa, and I'm reminding you to tune in to the Southside Unicorn Show, hosted by my friend Ken White.
Do
Hey, everybody. That's right. It's me, Ken White, host of the Southside Unicorn Show, and we are back from the messages. Want to thank you for listening to our supporters, because if you listen to the commercials, whether you use the product or not, and I suggest that you do, you help the show. So if you want to donate to the show, or you want to chime into the show, you can do that by following us on our Facebook page or following me at Ken White 4444 on Twitter. We do this for you all. We do this because this is the forum that we need. We're all out there frustrated, and we're trying to figure out, how do we make America better? It should not be us and them. When you look at that flag in the sky, whether it be on a pole or your neighbor's house, you shouldn't be feeling like you have a different version of America. You may have different opinions, but we really cannot afford to have different versions of America. We got to come back together, ladies and gentlemen. We got to do this right. There cannot be one party. There cannot be one Republican Party. There cannot be one Democrat Party. And it seems like both sides are trying to tell us that it's all or nothing. Well, it's all of us or there's nothing. That's what I'm here to try to help you understand today. Now, look, as a kid, I grew up watching all these sci-fi shows. You probably grew up watching them too. You know, I could rattle them off. You got Star Trek. You got Star Wars. And if you look at Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry is the director, founder, and creator of Star Trek. And in Star Trek, he used to make it clear when you talk to someone on the Enterprise or another ship, money didn't exist in the 24th century. It was gone. People lived their arts. People followed the pursuits of betterment. People found a skill that they were good at and offered it to the Federation. The Federation. I don't want that to sound too much like the Axis or too much like the Empire, but that was the vision. You look at any futuristic show, and you got all these guys wearing uniforms, and everybody's got enough equipment. You got starships, you got living quarters, you got food, you got all this, and obviously education, because you got scientists and doctors and all this stuff going on, but no money. Ain't nobody got no money. Why is that? Is that really? Because see, when it comes to Gene Roddenberry and Star Trek, I mean, I'm going to talk about Star Wars too, because I like them too. In Star Wars, Star Trek, a lot of the things that they hosted in the show back in the 1960s, 1965, when Captain James Tiberius Kirk opened up his communicator, people fell out laughing. They was like, what is that? What in the world is going on? Because he flipped open his communicator. But now you flash forward to the 1990s, and if you didn't have a razor, or should I say the early 2000s, if you didn't have a razor, the phone that you could flip open, you was nobody. So Star Trek kind of intimated what the future would look like. But let's go back to that main theme. Nobody had no money. Nobody worked for money. People worked for the betterment of the Federation. So as you know, we have two millennials with us here today. We have Jonathan, age 24, and and James, age 23. They're square dead in Millennial. And I'm glad they came onto the show. I want to thank you two gentlemen again for coming on board. So the second segment in the show is universal income, the universe, space, that final frontier. Jonathan, I need you to help us understand, because I'm going to tell you, I grew up in an era where if a man didn't work, he didn't eat. If you don't get off your butt and jam, like Lil Wayne said, you don't need a bus pass. You need to bust your, you know what he said. I'm from an old school. I'm a baby boomer. And we believe in work for fair wages. But now comes, Miss Cortez, Congresswoman Cortez, and she's preaching to you millennials about budgets that are going to be well in excess of trillions of dollars. See, dollars are still a part of it. Do you get that?
Yeah.
You see that, right?
Money's always going to be involved.
Money's always going to be involved. So we agree. James?
Yeah, I would agree. Money's always going to be
It's going to always be a factor, right? So let's break this down, because I'm going to need you guys you're going to have to usher me into the concept of why Bernie Sanders, Why, or Ocasio-Cortez? Why these people are getting the ear of you young people? And is it because of something called universal income, Jonathan James? What is this?
Well, I think the appeal to it is people see automation taking a lot of our jobs, and 1/3 of American jobs are actually going to be lost to automation in 2030. That's 1/3 of our workforce gone to automation. How are we going to essentially subsidize these people when their jobs are gone? Our unemployment is just going to continue to rise because think of all of the jobs that can be automated. We have Tesla with self-driving cars. That's only going to get better. And what's one of the biggest industries in America? Our trucking industry. Our trucking industry is going to become automated at an ever more evolving and rapid pace. So what are we supposed to do with all of these people who are eventually going to be out of a job that have only maybe a high school diploma, that didn't necessarily already like college? How are we supposed to get them a job or transition them into something more long-term? And I think that's the appeal to universal basic income, is giving people like truck drivers who are eventually going to lose their jobs a soft landing.
Now, once again, you have impressed me as a young millennial. I like the way you get the message out there, because now and I'm sure the listeners, you all are getting this, so you better chime in. You better not let such a good show go to waste because of egos and all this other stuff. Chime in and give your response. Communicate so that we can start this dialogue with these young people, because they've made the time to show up. We need to show up too. Show up on this show, the Southside Unicorn. You can listen to the show, and I got to do it this way, guys. Pardon me for a minute, James, okay? Listen to the show on Spreaker, SPREAKER.com/user/Ken White. It's called the Southside Unicorn Show. Better start listening, because it ain't going nowhere. We moving forward. You better keep up. That was really good, Jonathan, because that's where you young people are. That's where you're thinking. That's where we've taken you. That's where technology and evolution has caused us to be. Now, James, how do you feel about that? This universal income. What's your take on that?
I think that every human deserves a right to have a roof over their head, water to drink, and food to eat. And a universal basic income could help us achieve that, even though I'm sure there are big hurdles that would need to be accounted for.
See, I hear you guys talking, and I know you guys you kind of treating me like I'm a mousetrap, like he's going to get us at some point. No, I am truly grateful that you're here. I know my listeners are listening intently, because this is the kind of conversations we've been wanting to have. We're all in our own bubbles. You got the millennials with Jay Leno and Jimmy Kimmel and all those guys. They're in their bubble, and we're in our bubble. And I love them to death, but we got our Larry Elders, our Dennis Pragers. We're all in our own bubbles. We have come out of the bubble. We popped the bubble, and we're here together. We have millennials and baby boomers talking to each other.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Out in the real world, I'm a college student, and I meet plenty of people that are Republican and Democrat, and it seems to me that once we get down to the brass tacks of talking about the issues face to face, that we have the same goals in mind. And it's only once I go onto the internet and I see the headlines that people are putting out is where I see the real division. I don't see
the chyrons on the bottom of the TV screen, the buzzwords, right?
Exactly. I don't see the division when I go and sit down in class and I talk to a Republican classmate. There's not that division there. There's not that hatred. I'm sure some people have had that hatred happen to them, and maybe they've put it on other people. But from my experience, the people that I've met at college, they're not like the headlines where people are saying, oh, like, Democrats are evil or Republicans are evil.
Well, I'm sorry. I got to stop you right there, because if people listening, I don't want them to think that I've turned away from my beliefs. I am not saying that people are evil. But I will say this much. is no different than wearing the uniform of the Lakers versus the Clippers. What team are you on? What side are you on? The Democrats have gone a long way, and I hope I can have the two of you on again because there's other topics that we want to talk about going forward. I don't want to go into the rabbit hole here tonight. We'll talk about that, Jonathan. Okay? Are the Democrats evil, or is what they're doing evil? We'll discuss that a little bit, further down the road. But I like what you're saying. We're not enemies. Is that the basic?
Yeah, that's the basic gist. We're all here trying to do the best that we think we can on this earth in the time that we have here. Mm-hmm. And I don't see the hate and the division that I see when I go online. I don't see that in person when I talk to actual people. I just don't see that in them that I see that is being portrayed online. So
if you, like you're saying, if you went on like the radio or the internet, you see all this vitriol and all this bitterness, but it's not in your real life.
Yeah.
Sort of like African American young people when they say racism hasn't affected their lives directly, but yet this idea of white privilege. And we'll get into that in one of the segments coming up, ladies and gentlemen, so go nowhere because we're going to touch on that about, the Me Too industry and white privilege because I happen to be fortunate to have two white males here with me tonight. So who better to talk about it? Who's more of an expert on that issue than the two gentlemen I have in front of me? But now, James, universal income. Is it an evil? Is it good? Is it going to happen?
I think it's good for sure, and I think that it definitely will happen no matter what eventually. When, I'm not really sure. Maybe it will be soon, maybe it won't be. But hypothetically speaking, we'll get to a point where you don't really need to pay people because there won't have to be any manpower exerted in order to produce what it is we need to survive. Say,
whoa, stop. Can I stop you right there real quick? Just, you're going to get your say. These young people are incredible. I got something in what he said. You got to remember when we first came to these lands, or not we, but when the Pilgrims first got here, hey, they tried socialism. They tried it. Everybody was supposed to work together to till the soil and all that. And you just mentioned a word called, basically, are you trying to crunch that can? Are you trying to open up a beverage? Because, we're just sitting here chilling because it's Friday. You just mentioned what I like to call from the south side of Chicago, sweat equity. Sweat equity. So you're trying to say that if a man ain't got to have sweat come from his brow, what's the reason for coins in a bag? What's the reason for rice or monetary exchange for labor? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, basically, if nobody has to work, why make anybody work? Why say that they have to do something?
Y'all busting my head right now. You busting my head.
Provide, like I was saying, hypothetically speaking, say you could have machines do everything we need to do to get everything that humans need to survive, and they don't need any maintenance. They power themselves somehow. All hypotheticals in a perfect world where man doesn't have to do any work, then why should we tell people that they don't get access to the things that they need to survive? Why even say that everybody doesn't deserve the right to survive then?
But that brings to mind? Man, y'all messing with me right now. Because now I'm trying to get with this Cortez. Because see, okay, goods and services. Supply and demand. These are factors that have to go into economics. Economics is what regulates our survival. Whether it be the stock exchange, the Nikkei, or whatever. These things help us to regulate so that we don't end up with overuse or waste. Waste is the worst, right? So Ocasio-Cortez tells us that we need to just stop with population. In conjunction to what you two gentlemen are saying, shouldn't population be a consideration? Nobody's saying nothing.
I'm not sure what you're asking.
What I'm saying is, if everything is free and nobody has to pay for anything, and we got 7 billion people here, that's a lot of burgers at McDonald's. You know how they said 100 billion served?
Okay, yeah, I see where you're going.
See where I'm going?
So, yeah, sure, overpopulation is definitely an issue, and I would go so far as to say that at some point we might have to seriously consider that there are not enough resources to go around, and we might have to limit the population at that point if we are to give every human equal human rights.
Well, now here I go. I'm gonna hit you with a trick question, okay? And I know I shouldn't say it's a trick question. Let me retract that. It's a question that has evolved from our conversation. In New York, the governor, to applause, has made it legal, and I call it murder, to murder a baby after it's been born. Now, we've agreed that if we go into this brave new world, population control might be a consideration. It's something we might have to do. Would you believe that those control holes should be pre or post conception? Jonathan, any idea?
Well, I have my own idea on overpopulation. I think right now we're actually seeing a decline in our population because millennials, our age group, are less likely to have one children, or we're less likely to have any children at all. So I don't see, at least here in America, overpopulation being as big of an issue as people are making it out to be. I'm not sure about what you referred to in New York City, the new law that got passed. I'm not sure about that.
The governor said that if it's a woman's right to choose, that even after the child is going, that you can smoke that baby, that you can still consider it an abortion if she says, I don't want that child. That's where we are now, gentlemen. I didn't know about your what is this thing right here, the universal income. Well, let me edify you on some things too. That's why we're having this conversation, because we need to learn. We got to know what we didn't know. I must admit, some of the things you all have said, because of the way I grew up, and I believe I was ahead of the curve when I was growing up, I can understand what you're trying to say. It's almost a causation, just like with marijuana, just like that night at the concert, just like one day I knew, at 14 I knew that marijuana was going to become legal because I had to step over people who was lighting it up. I could see that. I can see where some of the things you young people are talking about are an inevitable course. But I can also see where it should be done in different ways. Population control shouldn't happen by murdering babies. It should be prior to conception. That's stuff that I wanted to talk to you all about. But like you said, you touched on it. You said millennials aren't having babies as often as they used to, right? You guys aren't getting down like that no more, huh? James, you were going to say?
I would say, as far as the quote-unquote killing babies thing goes, if it is happening after they're born, then I think that that's definitely a bad thing.
That's wrong.
Two criteria.
I'm glad to hear you say that.
Two criteria for when it's okay to kill something, and of course, I'm talking about
human beings. I was going to correct. I didn't want to correct you, but I was because I want to hear you say it in your own words.
If you're going to go hunt deer, that's different. I understand.
I got a friend, Phil Naiman. He hunts deer.
Say a human, right? Is it aware of what you're doing to it? A baby is not, so that's fine. But does it feel pain? A baby still does feel pain, even if it's not aware of what you're doing to it. And so at that point, it's really too late to be able to say that you can ethically kill it.
So you would say that Governor Cuomo is wrong.
If you can do it before it knows what's happening and before it can feel pain, then it's fine.
So what if I were to tell you that in the first trimester, a baby can feel pain? That's the first 3 months. What would you say?
Limit it to when it can't.
That would be way before that. It will be, I'm going to look into it. I don't want to misspeak here because I'm pro-life.
I don't know when.
Right,
so
but you're saying as long as the child doesn't feel pain.
Criteria, whatever scientifically produces those criteria where it's okay.
That's the limit of abortion for you.
That's where my limit is, yeah.
Thank you for that. Jonathan?
Well, my opinion on it is more coming from like I mentioned about the weed discussion. The government
it's inevitable.
The government shouldn't be able to tell anyone what they can or can't do with their body.
That's interesting you would say that. That only applies to the woman. What about the dad? Does the dad have any play in this at all?
I would say no, just because as men we can't carry our offspring. It is up to the women. So in that sense, it would be like, imagine me being the government telling my wife, hey, you need to get an abortion or you don't need to get an abortion. Is that not the same thing as somebody else, like the government, saying that this person can or can't get an abortion. To me, it's the same thing, and I don't think anyone else has the right to tell someone else what they can or can't do with their body.
Ollie Oxenfree, huh?
That's another libertarian tendency.
Wait. I think James has something to say about this. What do you want to say?
Just a question about that. Are you saying only for while it's still in the womb or after it comes out?
Only while it's still in the womb.
Okay.
All
I
right.
agree then.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're having a good time, and it looks like I ran a little bit over. Everybody's getting a little nervous right quick, but this is a good conversation. It's the conversation that should be had, and we're going to switch the order a little bit. We were going to talk about Jussie Smollett next in the next segment, but I want to go to white privilege in the next segment, and we'll finish with Jussie Smollett. What do you guys say?
Works for me.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, go nowhere. We're going to go ahead and pause for a station break. Thank you for listening to the Southside Unicorn Show. This is your host, Ken White, and I have two millennials, James and Jonathan, with us today, and we'll be right back after this.
Do just what you want. You're the one I trust. I belong.
It's Joy Villa, and I'm reminding you to tune in to the Southside Unicorn Show, hosted by my friend Ken White.
Do just what you want. You're the one I trust. I belong to you.
Hey, everybody. That's right. Thank you for staying with us because we're in our third segment of the show, and this has been one very good show. We have with us Jonathan and James. Jonathan is age 24 and James is age 23. They are both millennials, square dead in the heart of what a millennial is. And I, yours truly, your host, Ken White, I am a baby boomer, right square dead in the heart of baby boomer. Who better to have this conversation? And let me tell you this, we're even more diametric than that. They're millennials, I'm a baby boomer. They're white males, and I'm a brother. Man, this couldn't get any better. These are the people, including the young ladies and the young, older ladies and whatnot. I don't want to use the word older. I guess I just tripped on it with that, but that's all right. What other word could I use? Hey, look, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I've been meaning on the Southside Unicorn Show. We got to talk about the now. We got to talk about what's happening with us. I don't knock it because I listen to it too from 5 in the morning. I'm a politic junkie. Some of my favorite luminaries out there that I admire and respect. Mo Kelly, my brother, much love to you and thank you for the tutelage and the help. Mason Weaver, thank you. I love the things that you show to me. Jennifer Horn, you're hard. Don Dix, you're hard. Larry Elder, you hard. I love all of you guys, and you guys are handling business. You are consummate professionals, worthy of immolation, worthy of being listened to, and I'm down for what you're doing. But I got my own calling. I got my own following too. And this is what I'm saying. We got to have some conversations. So we're having that for you all right now. I hope you're paying attention. We said in the third, we're going to switch the segments up. We were switching it up a little bit, where now we're going to do the fourth segment and the third segment, which is white privilege. What is white privilege? Now, as we segue into next, tomorrow's show, which is my version of Black History, I don't totally remember it, but I can remember the feel of white privilege. Let me explain it to you all, and you two gentlemen, are you with me, Jonathan?
Yes.
Are you with me, James? I'm
Absolutely.
talking to you, okay? I'm talking to you. You see me over here, right? Let me explain a vision to you guys. And it's a truth. It's a real story. When I was a kid, my mama didn't get money very often. She got money, and it was a good time. I could always tell when she had money because her mood was a little bit better. Her swag was a little bit better because there was money in the house. And on those times, we would actually go out and do stuff. Now, as a child, we used to go to a place, and you wouldn't even know nothing about this, guys, because it's gone now. Just like we were talking about with automation and what's that thing again? Universal income. All these different changes and evolutions that happen. Let me be evidence to you that you're right. You two gentlemen are right. Evolution happens. Change happens. Do you guys know if I said the word Woolworth, would you know what I'm talking about?
No.
No, you got to speak it, guys, because they can't see you shaking your heads. You wouldn't know, would you?
No.
Woolworth was like Walmart. Woolworth was like Amazon of the 20th century. Okay? Everything was still in a brick and mortar. You're familiar with the brick and mortar, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Brick and mortar. And inside of the Woolworths was a restaurant. Had these like chrome stools with these beautiful leather red button tops on the top of the seat. They were chrome with red buttons on the top of them. And a nice little table. And the women were professionally dressed. They had aprons on and all that stuff and the little hats. See, back in the day, that's the way people got down. You know, they were consummate professionals, even if they were flipping burgers. Them burgers used to smell so good. I mean, I could smell them when we go in there and get the things that we could go get, right? And my mama was like, boy, I can't afford that. You need to get back, right? And I understood, you know, I'd cry. One time I cried. I never did that again, let me tell you. But I can remember the money was good. The money was flowing. And my mama said, I'm going to buy you one of them burgers, boy. Oh, I was so happy. Woo-wee. I was about to get a Woolworths burger. I see that smile on your face, Jonathan. You can feel my...
I bet you're happy.
I was happy. I was happy. I was like, ooh, I'm going to get a cheeseburger. Because they would, somehow they would do it. They would fry that burger on these big old, like, skillets, right? I mean, it was like a fried place, right? And they put the cheese on top of it while it melted down. And the onions. Oh, man, there was some serious burgers. My mama was able to buy me one of those. And she did. And the woman put it in a brown sack, in a brown paper bag. And I quickly unwrapped that brown, watch this. I unwrapped that brown paper bag. And I took that burger and I sat next to this big fat white guy. And I was about to chew down on that burger. I was about to bite the hell out of it, right? I can say hell. We just can't say other words on the station. But hell's good enough. And that old white man, big fat white guy, looked down at me to his right, because I was off to his right side on the next stool next to him. And he looked at me like he had seen an apparition. Like he had seen something wrong. And my mama snatched me by my little bony arm so hard. Boy, get up from there. Get up from there. And at, what was it, 7, 8 years old? All that was wrong. Messed my burger up. I was looking so forward to eating that burger at that stool. I'd seen those stools for God knows how long. And that old white man looked over at me and looked at my mama like, what is that boy doing sitting at that stool about to eat that burger? And I knew. I felt funny. I still ate it. We still walked through the store. And I still had my little brown paper bag. And that burger still tasted good. I always wanted one. Now, if that's what white privilege is, oh, I know it. I feel it. I felt it. I felt it many other times too. But I've never allowed myself to languinate on quote-unquote white privilege. Do you guys believe you have white privilege?
No, I don't think specifically I have white privilege, but I think everybody has some sort of privilege. I'm privileged enough to be here speaking to you. I'm privileged enough to be sitting here in my own house talking to you. I have privilege just in a sense of where I am right now. But everyone has their own sense of privilege. There's people worse off than me that have privilege above people that are worse off than them. And there are people above me that have more privilege than me just by the means in which they conduct their life, whether that's through the income that they have or the position of power that they're...
So you're trying to say that privilege isn't connected to your ethnicity or race, but privilege does exist.
Yes, we all have our certain forms of privilege.
James wants to say something, ladies and gentlemen.
I would disagree. I think that racial privilege is totally a thing. I think that white privilege does exist, and I think it can for other races too, in the sense that what privilege is a favorability in your social interactions within a particular group. Now, white people definitely might experience situations where they receive a more favorable reaction than someone who is non-white. The same way that a person of any other skin tone could receive a more favorable reaction depending on their social setting for being of that skin tone. if that makes sense.
It makes sense. Now, my audience and I, we're going to have to, pick a beverage. It doesn't have to be an alcoholic beverage. It doesn't have to be an adult beverage. But whatever you got out there right now, go ahead and take a sip like we all doing. James just took a sip. I'm getting ready to take a sip.
I'll do the same.
You going to do the same? Because you need to take a sip and digest what James just said. Makes totally good sense, brother. I understand what you're saying. I understand what both of you are saying. Privilege does exist, but it's not connected to race. Tribalism does exist, and it does somehow create a gravity where people of like kinds kind of work together for the better of the group.
Yeah, certainly. I would say, in essence, that is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why I had to take a sip, brother.
Yeah.
I got you. Oh, I got you. How do we fix this? Because, see, in this world, you got the Spike Lees who, personally, I think his punch was spiked. I can't stand Spike Lee. Spike Lee is a damn fool in my book. You know what I'm saying? But we got him. These guys get the microphone. I need you all out there in America to give me some microphone. At Ken White 4444 on Twitter. You guys have to retweet this. You got to pass it on so that Spike Lee isn't the only one that we hear. But if he's the only one we hear, all we're going to hear is foolishness. Just like the same foolishness we would hear from Ashley Shackelford. I watch, what's that? King of the Hill. Bloom, 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 right? And you got his friend, not Boomhauer, the other guy. And he always calls himself Rusty Shackelford. Well, I'll be darned if the name ain't real for another fool. Ashley Shackelford. See, we can't let these be the voices that we hear. I'm going to play you a quick tape from a woman named Ashley Shackelford who says that white privilege is real and that all white people are racist. Let's run that clip right quick.
All white people are racist. So I put this up because I really want any white person in the room to know up front that this is what we're dealing with, that it's not going to be this coddling of white tears and what that looks like. We're not going to discuss, maybe some of us have worked it out. No, you're always going to be racist, actually. So even when you're on your path to trying to figure out how to be a better human being, because I believe that white people are born into not being human, like that actually, instead of people of color and black folks being dehumanized, that actually everyone is dehumanized off rip within white supremacy, that y'all are born into a life to not be human, and that's what y'all are taught to do, to be demons. So in this particular way, white people are all racist. So I just want y'all to know that up front.
Okay. You guys heard that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
James, how did that make you feel as a white male?
I think it sounds pretty ignorant. I don't feel particularly attacked just because I'm aware that ignorance exists in the world and I can tolerate it for the most part as long as it doesn't physically affect me.
That's interesting. Now, I'm going to come at you a little bit because we got to drill down into the nitty gritty. How many black friends do you have?
Handful.
A handful. The majority of your friends are white.
No, I would say it's actually pretty well mixed.
Really?
Yeah. Because
I was trying to go back to where you brought in tribalism. And I thought because you brought that up, that would be, the house that you lived in. That's your wheelhouse, But do you, we all know that this is going out to the world, but nobody really knows exactly who you are. Do you agree with anything that she said?
What exactly did she say?
She said all white people are racist, and you'll never stop being a racist. So watch this, right, Jimmy? Technically, as a brother, as a black man, as an African American from the South Side of Chicago, I'm sitting here in front of two white racists. That really scares me. That brings me back to visions of Jussie Smollett. That tells me that beneath those seats, you guys got a rope and some bleach waiting on me, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would think that that's just absolutely silly what she's saying. Of course, she didn't elaborate on what her reasoning was.
Could you really elaborate on that? That's crazy.
But no, I don't think there's anything that you can say that really makes much sense as to why all of a certain people are racist. That statement right there is discriminatory in nature.
It's racist in and of itself, right?
Yeah, I would say to be racist, of course, there's different terms or types of racism that people like to talk about, such as social racism versus institutionalized racism, which is a social structure, but still.
Which brings us back to white privilege.
Between institutionalized racism and what happens on the street every day in person-to-person social interactions. And it's just totally ignorant to say that an entire group of people are like this, and that is racist inherently. You're saying that this group of people all behave this way because of their skin color. So you're separating a group of people because of their skin color and discriminating against them. That right there is racist.
But now I'm gonna play devil's advocate real quick. What she's really trying to say, I think, is you guys do it because it gets you some perks. It gets you some bennies. It gets you ahead of the struggle, the day-to-day struggle where everybody's trying to make bills. You ain't working as hard to make that happen, which brings us all the way back to the evolution of society, where you have what I believe you called, what was that, universal income, right? Universal income, is that going to be the great equalizer? We'll talk more about all these things later in the future. But right now, monetary power, monetary strength is survival. Pardon me. This white privilege, doesn't it give you guys more money? Don't you make better money? Don't you live better than everybody else, Jonathan?
I wish it did. I wish I got a check in the mail every couple of months for a couple $100 just because I'm white, but that just doesn't happen.
So you're not getting no check in the mail?
No, I wish. If someone wants to, I would gladly accept the check.
And ain't no white people winking at you when you go to the counter and say, we're going to deduct your bill by 50%.
No, of course not, because that's just not how normal people in a normal transaction handle themselves.
So what is this white privilege about? What do you think she's talking about in that? Because she's got people, ladies and gentlemen, you couldn't see it, but we were looking at a video. Homegirl got people in front of her, and she's teaching white people how to feel guilty about always being racist. And that, if I'm not mistaken, she said you guys were like non-humans, right? That's what she said.
Yeah, she said that, I believe she said that she thinks that we are born into being non-human or less than human.
Wow.
And that,
the white devil. That's all.
I don't know how
so that's where that word comes
view.
from, huh? The white devil. You guys are the white devil. That's what you. How does that make you feel as a young white male trying to make it in this new world? I mean, with this being the talking points that Spike Lee and Jussie Smollett and obviously Miss Shackelford, these are the things that CNN and all the other stations are pushing into our heads. How does that make you guys feel?
I think it's really disappointing to see any group of people discriminate against another group of people. We're all human, right?
No, not according to Miss Small. What's her name? Is Shackelford.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
According to her. So it's disappointing to hear that some people are thinking like that. Again, if it doesn't physically affect me, I'm not incredibly upset. I don't want to go around.
But see, that's just it.
Bothered over
What's this?
Some random lady said somewhere.
This is where the old man is going to help the young men. There's an old saying from, and I'm sorry about what's happening to Benjamin Netanyahu. Seems like the leftists and the Democrats have learned to attack Israel directly, so he's under indictment. But the Jewish people gave us a great saying. They don't know who authored it, but it reads a little bit like, they came for the bakers, but I wasn't a baker, so I didn't care. They came for the artist, but I wasn't an artist, so I didn't care. They came for yada, yada, yada. They came for everybody. But then one day, they came for me, and there was no one left to care for me. Well, see, now I got to flip the script. I know what racism is about. I felt it. Been there, done that. I've lost loved ones who have died in questionable situations at the hands of whites that could clearly be considered a lynching. This is documented in my past. I challenge anybody to test anything I'm telling you about my history. Because when you hear me say, oh, I lost a person here, or I lost a person there, oh, these are real. Why God chose to have me experience those things, I don't know yet. But I know that I've experienced the American dichotomy on a lot of levels. And the last thing I want to see is white young men like yourselves be treated like my people were treated. If you are indeed a human being, the last thing you want to see is other people being treated that way. That's why I believe she spoke in dehumanizing terms. She automatically declared you guys non-humans. That's the only way you can be cruel to someone. That's the only way you can perpetrate inhumanities on a human.
Yeah, I think that's a fairly common social tactic throughout history that you'll see in order to get a crowd or a mass of people to feel more comfortable about discriminating against a particular group of people, because then you don't have to think that they feel like you do.
Exactly. And for her to be in a college setting and actually trying to teach that, I'm glad you caught that, James. You caught it, right, Jonathan?
Yeah.
You know, that she would start off her argument that you guys aren't human. That is the most Orwellian thing I've ever heard. We have got to challenge that. We're challenging that on the Southside Unicorn Show, hosted by yours truly, Ken White. I love having guests like yourselves on board with me, because this, and right here, is where we're going to be able to make people understand, or not make them, but give them an alternative. Because they're talking to real human beings. They're talking to real Americans. Your bona fides are not the stellar markings of doctorate degrees and woo woo woo. But you are in college, right? You're in college.
Yes, I'm in college.
You're in college.
Yeah.
How is dating going for you guys? I mean, are you getting dates? What's happening out there?
I haven't found the one. I hope she's not listening. I have a girlfriend right now, but she's not the one.
You should have let me talk to you before you said that. See, I am also, not only am I the host of the Southside Unicorn Show, I am the Doctor of Love. You should have let me holler at you before you said that.
You need to help me out with that then, Mr. Doctor of Love over there.
I got your back, brother. We're going to work that out. But what I'm trying to say is, you got this Me Too mentality out there. Is this Me Too thing messing you guys up? Is this slowing your role as far as wanting to get with women? Does abortion play a part in that? Do you feel like maybe if you get with this woman, she either is one going to make you a dad when you don't want to be a dad, or she's going to stop you from being a dad when you want to be a dad? Is all these social issues that we're dealing with, is it affecting your love life? Jonathan?
Well, I think on the whole abortion issue, I think you just have to have a discussion with the people that you're wanting to date or that you're seeing about whether or not that's something that you guys would either want to do or not want to do in your future relationship. My previous relationship, that's something that we talked about extensively, is what happens if we were to become pregnant. What do we want from each other?
I want to stop you right there, bro. See, this is, ladies and gentlemen, this is why I selected these two young men to be on this show. They are very intelligent. Don't you make no mistake about it. You're dealing with some very bright young men. Jonathan, you said, when we become pregnant. That's a deep statement, brother. You have rocked me all inside myself. When we become pregnant. Did you hear that, ladies? Did you hear that? It is not a journey of one. And it ain't all about my right to choose. This beautiful young man in front of me, Jonathan, he just said, say it again. I want it in your own words. Say that again.
That we choose to decide what happens going further based off what my partner wants and what she has the vision for her life and what I have a vision for my life, and to make sure that if we are going to continue dating or continue our relationship, that those visions line up.
See, and now I'm going to segue over to my man James, because James says he's got a lady right now, but she's not the right one right now. What's up, James? Why? I mean, what's your?
Can't put him on the spot.
I had to.
He's gonna get in trouble.
Started. Too late for that, baby.
What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that is you're dating.
Yeah.
But you have a woman, and
Yeah.
I don't want to expand on it much, but we need to talk about this.
Okay.
But you already kind of feeling that she's not the long term.
Yeah.
What's up?
I can just tell you have to date in order to be able to find out if these people are the right ones or
That's
not.
right. Got to drive it around the block. I don't love that. But so don't give them no milk if they don't want to buy the cow.
Totally have some fun in the meantime, even if you know you're not going to end up with that person.
You got to know where you're going. You know, I mean, you got to
nothing wrong
test
with
drive
that.
it. You know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know. Now I know that sometimes that'll go into conflict with Scripture. I'm not trying to be totally rebellious in that regard, but let's keep it real. Let's kick the ballistics. You know, the unknown is the worst. Now I will say this. Sometimes when people cohabitate before they get married, that is a doomed relationship. Statistics prove that if you live with a person before you marry them, you're going to end up in divorce 9 times out of 10. Sometimes back in the olden days, A man and a young lady and a young man, they were selected by their families, and they would get together. And those are some of the most long-lasting relationships you ever want to see. I don't like to think about the specter of abuse. Let's remove that, because if you're in an abusive relationship, get out. Go get some help. Make sure that person gets some help. Get out of a abusive relationship, because that's the only way everybody's gonna get okay. There's not a good guy or bad guy in an abusive relationship. There's just hurting people, and you got to help them get out of a hurting dynamic. But I want to go back to what Miss Shackelford said about you guys. You guys are inherently racist, man. You're racist. You know, how long have I known you, Jonathan?
Most of my life.
Since you were like 5 years old, huh?
Yeah.
I find it incredible that you would look at people of color and have an issue with them. I just don't see that. James, I've only known you a while, but I have to come at you. You don't impress me as the type of person that would mistreat somebody based on the color of their skin. I just don't see that.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I'm a pretty good judge of people. So what do we do with the Spike Lee's? Did you guys watch the Grammys at all?
No.
Whoa, wait a minute. Hold up. Y'all millennials, man. You're not a Republican, right?
Nope.
You're not a Republican.
No, I'm not.
And you didn't watch the Grammys? Why not?
It's just not something that I'm interested in. I don't care for what critics think about some movie or some,
so it wasn't the political
TV
angle
show
that stopped you from doing it because they bashed the president. That didn't stop you.
No, I'm going to enjoy the art for the reasons that I enjoy it. Why do I care what some critic thinks that's seen 500 movies?
Okay. James?
Yeah, I think he actually hit the nail on the head pretty well there. I like watching things that I like because I enjoy it, and I don't care enough about your opinion. Although you're free to express it.
So you watch the movies you watch, and the Grammys wouldn't help you one way or the other.
Oh yeah, I don't care.
Oh,
I'm
well,
gonna
then
do
you
my
know-
reading. I'll do my research, find what I want to watch. I don't need.
You guys didn't miss much, but you sure missed being insulted. You sure missed being insulted because there's a guy named Spike Lee. They consider him some type of great movie maker. To be honest, truth be told, anybody with a decent budget and half a brain can make the same stuff that Spike Lee makes. He really isn't a talent at all. And I really am disappointed that he speaks for African Americans as a whole because the mainstream media seems to glum on him. And they always use him. I'm going to have to clear my throat. Pardon me, everybody. So you didn't miss much. But he's a racist. Does a person have to be white to be a racist, Jonathan?
No. Anybody can be a racist. Anybody can discriminate against somebody else for the color of their skin, just like the clip that we watch. She's clearly discriminating against white people based off of the color of our skin because with no preconceived thoughts, she automatically assumes we are racist and evil because of our white skin. And that's discriminatory.
Let me do something here.
All right.
Yeah, I'm fine. So, James, you heard what Miss Shackelford had to say.
Mm-hmm.
I've explained to you the opinions of Spike Lee.
Right.
You are a 23-year-old white male in college, got a girlfriend, and you're about to go into a brave new world. Do you believe that the world's going to offer you the opportunities to get to this monetary-free future that you all are envisioning, or are you going to be hamstrung by your race?
It's difficult to say, matter-of-factly. I would like to think that my race isn't going to play that serious of a role in it, that it would inhibit me from doing anything that I really want to do. I feel like a much bigger issue are economic factors.
Really?
That's a far bigger inhibitor.
So your preparation, your education, you believe those are the things that will stop you from getting ahead?
I mean, it's simple. You want to start a business, what's going to stop you? That you're white or black, or that you don't have the money you need to pay for that business license?
Now, see, here's the funny part. And I guess really there's nothing funny about what we're doing today. If we were to go by CNN, if we were to listen to, and you guys got to help me, who's that black guy on CNN that does all the talking most of the time? The spokesman.
I'm not sure. I don't particularly watch CNN.
God, I wish I could. His name just jumped right out of my head right now, and I don't like that. But if we were to listen to them, the two of you are the worst thing that ever happened to the world. Now, isn't it ironic that the Civil Rights Act was signed in 1964? So that's 55 years ago. And that was to ensure that African Americans were treated as human beings, that they had rights and access. Flash forward 55 years later, and here you two gentlemen are with me, and we have to suffer Miss Shackelford saying that you guys aren't human, that now your color of your skin is going to cause discrimination. I don't know how to put that into a framework. Going forward into the future, do you believe, and I got to give this to you, and it's your opinions, ladies and gentlemen, I invited you all to listen to the Southside Unicorn Show, and this is how we do it. We just keep it real. So I'm going to ask Jonathan, if you had to make a ballot between Donald J. Trump, what's his name, Sanders, or Hillary Clinton, who would you vote for?
I would probably vote for Donald Trump. And I am saying this as someone who voted for Hillary Clinton in the last election.
Is that right? James?
I would probably vote for Trump at this point, but I did not vote.
You didn't vote?
I did not.
Why not?
Didn't want to go out and do it.
Whoa! What, was it raining that day, or you just felt like Bruno Mars? You just didn't want to do anything that day?
I didn't feel particularly compelled towards any candidate, and I think the idea that, you need to vote and need to have a say is completely silly.
Well, that's funny you should say that. I
don't want to pick between the lesser of two evils.
The lesser of two evils? Oh, we won't go there today. But you know what? There was a song when I grew up from a group called Rush, called I Choose Free Will. And it says, if I choose not to decide, I still have made a choice. That's what you did. You know that, right?
I would agree with that statement. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I really want to say thank you guys for giving me your time. I hope I can get you on the show another time. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how it's supposed to be done. If we're going to fix the divide between us, the existing parts or the future parts, it's not going to happen letting some of these talking heads do it. They can't do it. They won't do it. They trying to protect their check. I'm trying to help save America one day at a time. We will talk about other stuff tomorrow because there's so many things I want to talk about, but I won't get all off into it tonight because it's that time, ladies and gentlemen. We've run into a time where we've run out of time. If there's any closing remarks that you all would like to say, now will be the time to do it.
Well, I just want to say thank you for having us on. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to somebody that is coming from the other side, and I think this is what we need more of.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and I'd say be tolerant, be cool.
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ken White, host of the Southside Unicorn Show, and I want to thank you for your time and being with us. We're out.